Round two.
Oh, look, no computer issues.
Woohoo!
I want to read this. Can I read this?
You want to read it?
Unfortunately,
Unfortunately.
we need to discuss the difference between Barbie the movie and Avengers Endgame.
Unfortunately. There's a quote by who's that?
Genesis.
It was somewhere in the Bible, man. I don't know.
Hey. Yeah.
Can I ask why?
Yeah, that's why. Go ahead.
Why?
So just what's been happening over the past, how long would you say? 5 years? 5 years in MCU specifically. I'm gonna stick with MCU.
Okay.
There's been a push to be more diverse. There's more inclusion.
I mean,
right?
that's happening with a lot of stuff.
I think that's kind of
right, but,
all areas.
Yeah,
but for this purpose,
we're talking about this because the MCU over the past 15 years or however long it's been around has probably been the most viewed thing as far as anything besides sports, right? Besides football.
I agree.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. So this is like way up there. So if you put in anything in there and you know, it's going to be highly visible, right? So starting, I don't want to say starting, but something that I remember got Black Panther I feel like kind of kicked it off. Like as a full blown, like we don't care. Like we're going to show a minority group in a major way and do a whole film about it.
Okay. I see where you're going. I don't
Right.
know if I agree 100% just because of how well it played, but I think I see where you're going.
Well, I mean, it was all black, not all black cast, but mostly all black cast, directors.
No, they had the token white guys.
Right, but the director.
You're not going to catch that quote, are you?
They filmed it. You know, I believe they filmed a lot of it at Tyler Perry Studio. So it's like,
okay,
it was a mostly all black production.
It was a push to show that diversity where it just, again, if you've got a good script, it doesn't matter, as was the case in Black Panther, because everyone and their grandma went to go watch this movie.
Yeah, but they all didn't watch it because they thought it was going to be a good movie. You had grandmas watching it who never watched a superhero movie
Fair
before.
enough.
It had nothing to do with the script.
Fair enough, but it was a good movie.
It was a good movie.
Yep.
Like people were kind of losing their minds about it. Oh, it's the best movie ever made. That's when I had to like, let's pump the brakes. Yeah. So anyway, what happened after that? You had Captain Marvel, female lead, female friends, also with powers.
Yep.
Black girl with powers.
Monica.
Mm-hmm. Aliens.
Yeah, aliens.
And not my brethren from across the way.
And then you had Avengers Endgame. Obviously, more has happened since then, but I might touch on it. But Avengers Endgame happened. At the end, the big fight. First person comes through the portal to be brought back to life. Black Panther, right? Then there's a scene. There is a specific scene where all the women,
the A-Force or the A-Team, I think is what they refer
get
to
together and they do their battle poses and they're ready to go out and whip some ass.
Yep.
And that scene in particular,
a lot of kickback from the fan base.
Right. That they didn't like it. I don't like this. It felt forced. Why did they have to do that? To the point to where I actually had a person complain to me about this 2 weeks ago.
Because they just now saw a 6-year-old movie?
No.
We were just talking
about it. And you still complained about that 2-minute clip.
Which, okay.
I mean, the movie was 3+ hours long. And this is a 2-minute clip.
So I would say this, not in defense or not in support of, I would say it simply like this. Could you say that it was probably felt a little forced in the storyline? Sure. Was it a kick-ass scene? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I didn't mind it. I loved it. It didn't take me out of it, and my little girl loved it.
Right.
She dug it.
But I'm glad you said take me out of it, because moving forward, that's what I kept hearing about other similar scenes moving forward in the MCU.
So did it take that person out of it? Is that what they're saying?
They didn't use those words, but I'm saying generally speaking, those are the words that I hear about that scene. About let's talk about Moon Knight, when the little girl, are you a black Egyptian superhero or whatever she said?
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, I am. Forced, awkward, yes. And then people say, oh, well, it took me out of it. Yo, it was a 20-second clip.
Yeah.
Yo, like, so I say that to say, it seems like everything that people have been bitching and complaining about as far as these small things in these large, long series and long movies, that is what Barbie is. And I know you haven't seen it. And I'm not saying this in a bad way, but Barbie is that. The whole movie is
pro-women, basically.
Pro-women, like...
It's based on a toy line that's made for girls or like-minded individuals that gear towards a female aptitude. Why would the movie be any different?
Right. And I don't hear anybody complaining about that.
Certainly not at the box office. Things doing crazy numbers.
Because it's expected.
Yeah.
Right? I expected the movie to be that way. But people act like that 2-minute scene in Endgame. They act like the Endgame was Barbie.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I think that's insane.
And I just can't believe that that's a thing 6 years later.
Yeah. It's still a thing. People still complain about it.
Like, I don't know who that person is. They may be a very well-rounded individual, but to bitch about something that happened 6 years ago for 2 minutes in a 3 hour and 12-minute movie.
Regardless of 6 years ago, people were bitching about it when it happened, which was still ridiculous.
It's still ridiculous, but at least I get the time frame of being in line with the movie. Again, this is not something that took me out of a movie, and
it can be the most awkward situation ever, and it's still not going to take me out of the movie. If it took me out of the movie wasn't that good to begin with.
Well, and the whole thing is, people want to feel represented, and if the people that I hear complaining about stuff like this are not people who had any trouble being represented in their life.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, so, you know, I look back, it's funny because I look back on movies that I grew up watching that I loved, and he'll watch it, and I didn't even notice literally the entire cast is white. Yeah. Everybody. And it's like, you just don't, that's not something that affected me because, I mean, I'm not trying to get on this soapbox, but I'm just saying, like, if somebody is excited about an Egyptian superhero or whatever, well, yeah, that's awesome because guess what? 99% of all superheroes growing up were probably white. And then men, you had one or two probably women. You would know better than I do. I didn't grow up with comic books.
You're the comic book
But I'm just saying.
No, you're not wrong.
Right. So it's like, if somebody feels better being represented, seeing themselves or somebody like them, that's awesome. It's not that big a deal.
We growing up, the only one I can really remember is probably Luke Cage, and that's.
And I don't even remember Luke Cage growing up. Honestly,
that's not a representation.
I don't feel like he was mainstream.
Mine. Yeah.
Right, he wasn't like mainstream.
No, and we didn't start really getting into, strong superhero representation. I mean, you could argue the death of Superman in the 90s, which brought about Steel. And not the goofy, Shaquille O'Neal movie, but, that was a good character. And you had Jon Stewart already kind of as being established, but they weren't as prominent. As far as Hispanic, I know I'm missing some, and I could go into some of the independent comic books, such as, El Gato Negro, which, was probably like kind of the first real one to kind of step up, but it wasn't by any means known. It was here and there.
Yeah.
I don't think you start really getting into it, and not trying to review this movie right now, because I'm sure this will be a podcast later. Exact reason why I loved Blue Beetle, and I, for the first time, didn't realize that, oh my gosh, I'm looking at an almost all Hispanic cast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this much, the director of that movie absolutely left stuff in just for us that wasn't translated on screen that had us laughing in the theater, because no one else got the jokes, but if you knew some Spanish, you were going to be laughing because they're like, see, they didn't translate that crap, and it hits me. It's because it was meant for us. It wasn't meant for anybody else. If you got it, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But there was little things like that. So I say that because then it goes into Blue Beetle in the comic book, and that was really kind of the first time you start seeing characters of Hispanic origin or anything like that. You go to Miles Morales, where you see, half African American, half Hispanic kid. Actually, I think half Cuban, maybe, or Puerto Rican, one of those. But those are the things that, yeah, sure, if we've got a good character and it's written well. And this is the one thing I will say about, I will say this about Jason, and he makes a valid point.
Well, depending on what you're about to say.
No.
Before I shout him out.
It's a very valid point. I rub up and have a harder time going up against when someone says, we want to change a character to be this particular race for, that's what's forced. Give me a brand new character with a great written origin and someone who we can back into.
Like who, though? Like what same character has changed race?
Well, as far as movies are concerned, where you start seeing, like, that's the biggest thing. One of the biggest things amongst comic book fans is if they see a ancillary character or secondary character, well, they weren't black, they weren't Mexican, they weren't this. It's like, who cares, really? But if it's a major character, I do think that's like, hey, give me
Nick Fury.
Nick Fury.
Even though
that worked better.
Yeah, even though I think there might have even been a comic book out before, but generally speaking, where he was a black guy. Yeah, but generally speaking, for the 60 years before that,
he was white.
He was white.
Yeah.
Well, I only asked. The reason I ask is because I had someone, I don't know if you remember, just recently was trying to sarcastically make a comment about how they were changing Spider-Man because they were showing the guy that plays Miles Morales, and I was like, we talked about it because I was like, well, Miles Morales is a whole different person. He's not. It's not
Peter Parker,
right? Where he's not replacing. Peter Parker.
No, same types of people are the ones who had a problem with the girl power scene in Endgame. Just to tie it back in, because what they saw was, they're gonna try to make a all-girl Avengers coming up, and then there's a female Thor now, and there's a female Iron Man now, and I don't like that.
My argument with that, though, is whenever someone comes up with that and goes, "Oh, look at this. Okay, so what have you been doing?" Well, I've watched every MCU movie there's out there. Great. You read any of the books? Well, no. Okay, well, this is established.
Right.
And that's
a little different. Like, I feel like people who have history with the comic books, truly, now we've seen it, like a lot of people who grow up on comic books will come in and say, that's not how that character was. And I get it. That's not how you read him or her. But people who have the problem that have no history with comic books, you just have a problem just because it's women or it's minority or whatever. It's like, stop. You have no.
Well, and that goes to my next point, which is I will push back on Jason a little bit and I guess your point, because you can let's make a whole new character. Listen, let's not change Nick Fury, make him black. Let's get a new person to head up a team of whoever, right? If they're a minority, if they're a woman, if they're gay, it's not going to sell. No one's going to see that. You have to force the issue. You're gonna have to give people something that they want, and then make the subtle change. Within it, you're not gonna make a whole new unknown leader of a big group of mutants or whatever superheroes.
But
it's not going to sell. All these people, there's a lot of racist, bigoted people, and a lot of them, and it's not gonna sell. And what's gonna happen as soon as it doesn't sell? They're not gonna make it anymore.
Yeah, but if it's not written well, if it's not good,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It does, and I'll tell you why. Because when you talk about Miles Morales,
in today's climate, it doesn't matter how it's written.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. I will fully disagree, because when you had something like Miles Morales, when he first appeared and he came out, that was much more of a, even more so than now, that was much more of a difficult time to get a character like that out there. You're talking late 90s, early 2000s, where it was a higher percentage of not caring about that, but it was a well-written character that went forward.
It doesn't matter. And this is why it doesn't matter. People go out and bash movies that they have not seen. They don't know anything about. They have not watched it, and then that becomes the narrative. I talk to people all the time. Oh, did you see this movie? Yeah, I saw it. Oh, I heard it was bad. Heard from who? Like the internet. You say it spreads. Everybody keeps having the same opinion over and over. So it doesn't matter if it's written well, if it's a minority lead, if it's a woman lead.
But hold on. Are you saying, Ray, that Miles Morales was a new character and he's a minority and it did well because the story was written well?
Yeah. Because the character.
But when did this happen? And
Again,
you're
you're
talking about comic books.
Yes, you are,
Yeah,
because that's what you said.
No,
but that's what you started off with saying
we're talking
about being
movies.
written.
We're talking about movies, how the movies are written. It doesn't matter how good the script is.
Here's the thing. You're never going to be able to fight ignorance or stupidity.
So you're talking about creating a new comic book character.
I'm talking specifically on the comics we started with.
Comic books are dead, bro.
As far as
I mean,
I think that's a lie too. If nothing else, they're there to establish and write the content that we're now viewing as movies. So there's always going to be that around. Now, granted, it's not as big as it was. You're certainly not putting up numbers like you did in the 90s where it was 1 million copies printed, sold, and whatever. You're not going to do that. Your highest selling one is probably at about 125,000, maybe even 200,000.
Well, I don't think he meant literally dead. It's just like the
it's
audience that's watching these movies now.
Moving forward, I mean, there's not going to be this big breakthrough in comic books that changes the course of what MCU is doing.
I don't agree with that either, though.
I mean, it's just not. It's just not
they're using
anytime
old stuff,
soon,
aren't they?
No, they're not. They're using.
I mean,
look at Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse. That is something that's pulled from these comics.
But that's also not MCU. So,
but even the MCU,
some side off thing. It's some side off thing that happened to work for Sony.
Thor 4 with the female Thor, with Jane becoming Thor. That was in the books in the early 2000s. So no, they're
early
still
2000 is over 20 years ago.
But you're still talking about stuff that's being pulled.
Right,
so it doesn't matter.
That's 2 decades
There's still
ago.
stuff that's being done now.
That's 2 decades
that
ago.
they will pull from there.
But just to be clear, what I was talking about, I'm talking about creating a new character in a movie.
Here's
not in a comic book. I'm talking about in a movie.
Here's the thing.
Instead of changing the race or whatever of a character, you create a new one.
I think it
wouldn't work.
I think you would have establishment. I think you could establish a character in that way. At the end of the day,
wasn't that Miles Morales though? That was a brand new character.
No, he'd been around for decades.
Yeah, but a lot of the people that are watching it now don't know that, right?
Yeah, they do.
Because I didn't remember him.
I don't think that's a fair statement.
Even in Miles Morales. Miles Morales was even in the Spider-Man game that came out 5 years ago.
No, we're talking about movies though.
I know, but the character was in a game that was wildly popular.
Okay,
but
5 years ago.
But that game came out after Into the Spider-Verse. Yes? Pretty sure.
I don't think so.
Miles Morales, as far as being in the game or whatever, was still, again, there's still a precedent for it. I guess
but still, it was an established character. He was not introduced for the first time ever in that movie.
I bet you for a lot of people he was.
I agree with that.
That's fine. But most of these characters were for a lot of people because they didn't read the comic books. But this was already an established thing. So you already knew what the reaction was to the character.
So you're talking about people who know stuff already?
No. I'm saying there's an audience, these comic book people, right? And there was a bigger audience when Miles Morales came out. They put him out. They know what the reaction is. 20 years later, whatever it was, they made a movie. It was not a brand new character created that no one had ever heard of before.
Okay,
for a lead in a movie.
But now
in a major movie.
But now you're contradicting what you had just said about it only being in the movie and the comics not really contributing to stuff. Because
I said the comics now. I'm not contradicting myself. The comics now are dead. They're not going to be a major factor.
Incorrect.
Okay.
Incorrect. Yeah, I won't agree with you on that. Just because the comics now are starting to lead to certain things that are coming down the line. Sure, it may take 5 years, but because you have to sit there and have the script written and the approval and everything else. So what's being written now can absolutely dictate what we get in the future.
I'm not saying it absolutely will not, but the bulk of your source material is not coming from something written 2 years ago.
I don't think anything is going to have something from 2 years ago. It doesn't just matter about that.
So when they put out the new X-Men movies in the MCU,
I hope they do something completely different.
It don't matter what you hope. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to pull something from an X-Men comic book from a year ago? Probably not.
They will do something that they've always done. They will pick and choose from the multiple comics that are out there. And if there's one that was well written and they have good ideas from it, they're going to utilize that, whether it was from 2 years ago or something from 20 years ago. Now,
and I'm not talking about just a piece from 2 years ago. I'm talking about you took something that was created 2 years ago in a comic book. You created a whole movie or series of movies about what was written 2 years ago. It's not going to happen.
Batman does that all the time in anything they do.
We're not even talking about Batman.
Look
We're not even talking about Detective Comics.
Let's look at the Flash.
They don't know what the hell they're doing.
Let's look at the Flash. The storyline for this didn't come from something that was 40 years back.
And you hated the movie and it flopped.
We haven't even gotten there yet.
So,
yeah, but
okay. So anyway, the point of this is, hey y'all, if you're that misogynistic, if you're that racist, if you're that bigoted, how about you just shut the hell up? I mean, if it's a 2-minute clip in a movie, and it bothers you that much, go away.
yeah, but you
Just
can
go live in the hills somewhere and go get away from people.
You can't wish for those people to disappear because those people have been here since the dawn of time.
Why can't I wish for them? Why can't I wish that they weren't
Because
here?
it's not going to happen.
It doesn't matter. It's a wish.
Yeah, true.
I wish I
You're
won the
true.
lotto, but it didn't happen. I mean, that's the point of a wish.
I thought it did.
No,
I thought it did happen.
no.
We would not be here.
I don't. Well, we might.
You might.
I guess
It wouldn't change.
I guess it depends on how much we're talking.
I think I could win a big one, and I'd still be wanting to
Yeah.
do stuff like this.
I think so. Yeah.
I'm not saying that the location may not be different.
Right.
Right. We might be coming to you live from the Hawaii, whatever.
Rio.
Rio. Yeah. But yeah, I will also go on to say this. At the end of the day, these are fictional characters for people. If their race, gender, or other change, and I'm going to drop one here, who the fuck cares?
Yep.
They're fictional. Now, if you sit there and you tell me, like they were joking the other day that it took off as a viral thing, that someone joked that Tom Hanks was going to be playing Martin Luther King. Now, if that legitimately happened, I have problems. But when you're talking about characters that were just created and who cares? Like, they're fictional. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. You want your opinion, you're entitled to it. God bless. Go and do what you're going to do. But to your point earlier, at the end of the day, just how about keep it to yourself sometimes? Because maybe and hopefully the majority of us that are out there don't care.
Or think about why it's bothering you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not that big of a deal.
Self-infliction is not important these days, and that's sad.
Yeah.
And then I think it's getting to a point. Well, I don't want to say where there's less bigoted people than there are bigoted people. I don't want to say that, but the minority now has enough spending power to where it can keep some things afloat. And then all that happens when you keep bitching about stuff is that they make a She-Hulk. That's what happens.
Which I like She-Hulk.
And I'm not taking anything away from She-Hulk, but it's like,
Were you upset about that?
is She-Hulk created the way it was created, with the tone in which it was created in, if people hadn't been bitching? Probably not. Like, the ending would not have been that way at all.
Well, the ending was what made that series. I love the
ending was trash.
This is my thing. I wouldn't even consider myself a feminist. I don't even think about it. It doesn't even occur to me when I see a She-Hulk come out that, oh, they're trying to really represent women. I take it for what it is. Like, She-Hulk, they're doing She-Hulk.
But She-Hulk was more Barbie than Endgame.
Well, I'm just saying.
It was like really, I feel like it was really truly more from a female's perspective.
I'm just saying,
it should have been.
it for
It was She-Hulk. That was the main character.
Right.
Right.
But would that have happened if people were not bitching about these scenes like this?
Oh.
Like, I feel like they were sticking it to them. Just like the ending. Like, I'm sticking it to you. Like, you want to keep bitching about the endings and you don't like our endings? Here it is. We're sticking it to you. The whole She-Hulk jabs, sticking it to you. Here it is. You don't like women power? Here's this.
I'll use one that's even more more current. Loved, and I didn't think I was gonna like it because I just wasn't looking forward to it. But I went to go see it.
Oh.
Huh?
Oh, okay.
No. Well, yeah, that's one.
Yeah.
Loved Miss Marvel.
Last Ronin?
No, not Last Ronin. Loved Miss Marvel, but I also loved The Little Mermaid.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
And when people came out and started, oh my God, it's a black girl. I'm like, first off, beautifully done. Right? It's got a little bit of problems. I think it's a little too long, but it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Who cares that a cartoon character from the 90s is suddenly a different color when they get to the big screen and they change it?
Racist people.
Well, yeah, but so much like other groups, is it a very vocal minority, or is it a vocal majority? If it's a vocal majority, that's a problem. That is a problem because crap, no one's safe. But if it's a vocal minority, These are people who use platforms like this, right? Who are on podcasts, and they just want to sit there and they find like-minded individuals who hate the others, whoever they seem the others or they are, that just are not, they're not long for this world with that mentality.
I don't know if it's minority or majority, but it's certainly not people that I associate with.
There you go.
I didn't hear anybody complaining about it.
It was enough to make waves. It was enough where everybody knew people had a problem with it.
Now, I think,
you see what I'm saying?
I don't think you can say everyone or everybody. I think
I'm saying you knew people had a problem with her being black.
Everybody knew that somebody had a problem.
Somebody knew somebody.
You knew that people had a problem with her being black.
But to Ann's point though, I did not know anyone personally. No one personally in my circle.
Yes, you did.
No, of course not. No, because even
bro, I read it. Yes, you do.
Somebody.
No,
you know.
we're not gonna say who. We're not doing that.
That's an off-the-air conversation.
We're gonna
so
have that off the air. But yeah, no, you definitely know somebody.
Now, I will say this though. I just want to say, because some people are super nostalgic, and they may not be. When that first was announced, I can see how some people. Because so Ariel came out when I was like 10, and I was obsessed with Ariel, obsessed. And it's a cartoon, but her voice was so beautiful. Whatever. So I can see how some people who maybe grew up with it were like, they have in their head how Ariel should be, not meaning for it to be a racist thing, but they're still holding on to how it was. You know what I mean? Now they need to think about how that comes off.
Did that individual write something? I think I just realized who you're talking about, and I think that's more in line with what she's saying.
No, it was twisted in a way to try to make it in line with that, but it was some bullshit. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
It was some bullshit, but more to that point.
Now we're just in round 2. Damn.
Yeah. No, we've been in round 2 for 45 minutes.
Yeah. Wow.
It's like how people.
It's a good topic though.
Right. No, it's a good topic.
It's a strong topic.
It's very similar how people hold on to movies they grew up with, and they're like, "That was such a good movie."
So I'm glad you said that, because this is something that I asked Sean once when I was on y'all show. It was shout out. It was a situation where who cares? Why do you care so much if they make a 4th season of the show and you thought it should stop at 3? Who cares if they make a Little Mermaid with a black Ariel? You don't have to watch it. Yeah. It doesn't change your movie. Like you see what I'm saying?
But you just said it right there. You don't have to, and you can fill in the blank. Watch it, listen to it, read it, do it,
talk about it.
Like you don't have to do any of that. And the problem is this is where I do feel the internet, especially on podcasting, has given people the ability to couch bitch, and with no fear of repercussions. You had this conversation 25 years ago in a street at a bar somewhere. Watch what you say, because you're going to get the shit beat out of you, because you may press that thing. But people have no fear of that anymore, because there's no real repercussions to them other than being canceled. But if you have enough of a backing and you're canceled, right? And I'm throwing quotes for those who are listening to us. But if you are canceled, then you have almost a bigger platform, because people don't want to do that. And I don't disagree with having to shut up. I think you can talk all you want. Be prepared for the repercussions of what you're going to say, though. And there's no fear of that anymore. There isn't. From the on high to the bottom, no one fears the repercussions for shit that they talk. Now, if you're comfortable with it and you can talk about it in public, awesome. Then at least you aren't that way. But most don't.
But 9 times out of 10, they don't.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, podcasting, social media, good thing and bad thing, as we're seeing.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's why I think it's important for our little show here to at least have the conversation from this perspective. Yeah. Because if it's all one-sided as far as like the negative and the homophobic and the whatever, it's just like that's what it's going to be.
We've talked about it before off air and had those plenty of discussions where I don't mind what you're going to say. I encourage people to have educated discussions with all sides, and you do not have to agree with that person. But maybe talking about it, if you can at least have them say, you know what? I never saw it that way. It's a good point. It starts to get them thinking, but not in such a way that we want to attack. Have a calm conversation about what you think.
Because I don't think, generally speaking, I'm just say racism, right? I don't think anybody, generally speaking, any racist person, white person, is going to listen to my black ass and change, right? But if they can listen.
Don't know.
But if they do, that's great. But if they listen to me and just, I'm gonna drop another one, shut the fuck up, that is also helpful.
Well, I think it depends on what kind of racist person you're talking about, because a lot of people, when you say a racist person, a lot of people picture somebody who's like blatantly racist, saying the N-word, referring to minorities in a certain way. But there's a lot of people that have, what do we call it? They're racially insensitive. They say things
not knowing, because that's how they grew up.
Right, that it's like, that's racist what you just said. Maybe they're not blatantly, they may, but those are the people I think that are more inclined to listen, because even I went through that when we got together. There was a lot of stuff like that I was not exposed to, that he was, that I had to understand, like, wow, maybe that level of thinking that I was ingrained in my brain as I grew up, not blatant stuff, okay? Like subtle stuff. Yeah. That you just don't realize until you sit down with somebody who was raised and had a life completely opposite of yours.
And it doesn't just have to be, okay, so the one thing that I would stress, racism resides in all cultures. And I'm going to pick on mine, okay? Because the most racism I've ever had has not been from a different culture. It's been from my own, because I didn't speak Spanish. I didn't grow up in Mexico. I didn't listen to the same things that they were listening to. I had a bigger problem with other Hispanics growing up than I did anybody else.
But is that racism?
It is racism. Just because it's in your own culture and it's the same, that does not mean that racism doesn't exist. I will tell you right now, I know for a fact, in the Latin culture, you have Cubans that do not like Puerto Ricans. You have Hispanics that do not like Mexicans. You have Mexicans who do not like Salvadorians. Not even kidding. When I went to Costa Rica and I visited, one of my things is I jokingly said, hey, who cuts the grass here? Right? Would I do that now? Probably not. Without hesitation, they named the exact people. And they're like, oh, that's, but it was still the same. It was the same background. They're still Latin. So just a similar, but from my side of it, like if a black person tries to tell me that I'm not black enough because I'm biracial, like I've never looked at that as racism. But it is a type of racism, because they don't see you as one of theirs. And I'm not saying that that's the case. I am saying that is what that represents within certain groups. So everyone has
it. Because I think just a general you just don't like a certain group of people for whatever reason, or a prejudice. Like, to me, that is actually lowering the word and the meaning of racism.
I don't think so.
It's bringing it down a few notches to just be on this surface level that they kind of teach. And I'm not bashing you, but I'm saying that they teach like elementary school. That's how they teach elementary school. This is when you don't like another group of people just because of this and that's racism. It's like, it's way more deep and more deeper and complex than that.
But some people that are our age, my age, since you call me older, but that are my age, they need to have that conversation at that level, because that's how they understand it.
No, that's not untrue.
Yeah. Like, you need to talk a little bit,
start like
slow and low or whatever.
Yeah.
But what I would say though, and this is not for anyone to be like any one particular group to see, hey, I told you they don't even like each other. No, because within that group too, I have absolutely met Caucasians who don't like Caucasians that have a certain background. Like,
that's more of like classism, right? What's the
word? No, we're not talking about a poverty level where you're sitting there and you're talking about wealth or anything like that. I'm talking just there to there. Like, it's just because they maybe they came from a more traditional, let's say, background from overseas. But at the end of the day, when they fill in that check line, and it says what race or what ethnicity you belong to, and you guys can all pick the same one, and they still hate each other. People, unfortunately, we've inherited this ability to hate one another. And when we add more differences, we just continue to hate. That's the one thing. We're talking about wishes. That's what I wish would stop. But
you can't wish for it, because it's not going to happen.
But I can, because I wish for the lottery.
Hey, wait, what was it? It's a classic. That's a super inside joke. Y'all don't know what the hell we're talking about.
But Yeah, that's super inside. But you also have to, like, that's my thing. Is like I don't want to just sit there and say, at the end of the day, hate is hate is hate, and I wish people would not hate, because then maybe everything else changes. So
Yeah.
until we really fix that, and because we are naturally self-hating individuals, it's a harder task.
And well,
Unfortunately,
social media makes it so much worse. People are
100.
so
I
hateful.
don't know. I like me some me. I'm just saying.
They're so hateful.
I like you some you too.
And then you got trolls who do it just to be funny. And
Just
it's like,
to be,
it's what you're saying is hurtful.
I-
And you may not even think that, but
I
you're just
go-
saying it.
I go out of my way not to respond to stuff that
Oh.
I see, because I'm just like, why?
Well, I
Just
think
why
I think
would
and I
you?
think it's more hurtful, not necessarily because the group that they're attacking sees it. It's more hurtful because you are slowly changing the perception in the minds of people who are reading it.
Yeah.
Like I had I had to have that conversation with somebody recently. Like, you think you're not hurting anybody by coming over here and saying negative things about a certain group, right?
Mhm.
You think you're not hurting anybody because it's just me and you talking.
Yeah.
But what if you change my mind? What if you slowly start changing my mind? Or I start regurgitating that mess to the next person, it changes their mind. And then what happens when they go shoot up the Dollar General?
Yeah. Which is one of those things where, like, when we end our show, vagabondnerds.com, just say, on Facebook, on YouTube. When we end our show, my whole thing is just be nice to each other, guys. Peace out. Be nice
And
to
I-
each
and I
other.
always-
We're all trying to get by. We're
Well,
all
yeah.
trying to keep
Well,
our head above
I
water.
usually disagree.
No, don't be nice to each other.
Well, I mean, some people you shouldn't be nice to. We've had
Those-
that conversation
Yeah,
too.
we have.
We've had
Yeah.
that conversation.
And that's a difference of opinion, and that's okay. I respect your opinion on it. I don't have to agree with it, but I respect the
But
opinion
you mean
of it.
more generally speaking, be kind.
Just be kind.
Right.
Yeah, be kind to each other.
Yeah, because if somebody's unkind to me, then like
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah,
all
that's
bets are off.
that's a little different.
Yeah, that's when you're face to face with reality.
Right.
That becomes a different situation, and how you play into it becomes a different situation, and every choice that's going to be made is going to be made given towards that situation. Round 3.
So again, this was not a bash at the Barbie movie.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that that's clear. The Barbie movie, what it was the message that it was given. I'm fine with.
Yeah.
I'm cool with.
I
Make another one, right?
I have a friend who has seen it 4 times now,
Yeah.
and just absolutely adores that
So
movie.
it's like, I'm cool with the message that they were given. Make another 3 or 4. What I'm saying is that is not in game.
Yeah.
In game is not that. So if the next time you see a 2-minute clip or a 30-second clip that pisses you off because some minority group is being represented, even if it feels forced and it's corny and it's cringeworthy, just go watch Barbie and then come back and you probably won't care as much.
Probably
How about that? I'm trying to give solutions. Yeah. Next time that bothers you, go watch Barbie as a whole and then come back and then watch the show again and then tell me that you had a problem with that 20-second clip. That's all. That's my point.
Okay.
Man, that was a great round. Round 3. Like, I'm pumped.
Wait, are you done?
Yes.